What's up? What's up, everybody? We're going over our wide receiver rankings, our tight end rankings for week. What are we at? Week 13?
13.
13
Yeah.
already? Man, we're getting close.
Happy
We're
December.
getting close to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, already December. Thanksgiving is now in the rear view. Man,
it's already December. It's December 1st. We got a lot of injuries to talk about today. A lot of injuries, a lot of players missing practice. It's going to be an interesting week. There's going to be a lot of practice reports to monitor. And I want to get right into that.
Yeah.
Mike Williams, he didn't practice on Wednesday. Monitor that. He might not play this week. Josh Jacobs, they mentioned that he might not practice all week, but he did get a limited practice in on Wednesday. So that's good news to start the week for him, with that calf injury. Lamar Jackson, he left practice early yesterday with a quad injury. That's something to monitor in today's practice reports. If not, I'd be picking up Tyler Huntley in 2 quarterback leagues, but it's a tough matchup against Denver. So, so that's the only concern.
Well,
do you want to pick him up and still start him?
If you pick up Tyler Huntley, I would. Just because there's probably not any better options out there, but also because the Broncos defense looked human again against Sam Darnold of all quarterbacks. And the Panthers offense, who shouldn't scare anybody. I mean, outside maybe DJ Moore. And D'Onta Foreman isn't bad. But, maybe I don't want to say that the defense has given up at this point because the offense is so bad there in Denver and they're just a bad team. But you have to wonder how long this elite defense will continue to play like an elite defense when morale is so low. I mean, we saw what's his name? Mike Purcell or whatever yelling at Russell Wilson on the sideline. And that was, stirring up headlines a little bit this week. I'm questioning whether they can continue to perform the way they have. I mean, if they just did that to let that happen against the Panthers, then, Tyler Huntley, he's pretty much, if you put number 8 on the back of his jersey and let him run around, he looks like Lamar Jackson, running around. Just the way he plays, too. It's just great.
They could. Lamar. The Ravens can definitely win that game, and on the ground, the Panthers they didn't really put it on Sam Darnold's shoulders, right? Like they ran D'Onta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard combined for almost 40. It's almost like 50 carries or 40 carries, So it's like they really ran the ball down your throat, So that's the formula. And we'll see if the Ravens do that. But at the same time, still a tough matchup for Huntley. But I still think he's probably at least, a top 16, 17 quarterback, even against Denver, if he were to play.
Yeah. We've seen Tyler Huntley coming and do his thing in lieu of Lamar Jackson, so I'm not worried about him if he has to start. I'm not worried about Lamar Jackson yet at this point. It's just one practice, but we'll see.
Yeah. My only concern that he did leave practice early. Like whenever that happens, I get worried opposed to like him coming into the week with an injury. But hopefully he's able to practice today and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Kylen Granson. Who? Kylen Granson, the tight end of the Colts. He's relevant because he didn't play last week. So that means Jelani Woods ended up popping off, and some people picked up Jelani Woods off the waiver wire. But Kylen Granson practiced in full. So it seems like Jelani Woods isn't going to be a thing this week against the Colts. For the Colts at tight end. Travis Etienne was limited in practice on Wednesday. Doug Peterson said that he's day-to-day and that he won't be out there until he's 100%. So I'd pick up JaMychal Hasty just in case. But at the same time, Peterson did say that he feels good about Etienne's availability this week. So the hope is that Etienne is good to go and that he plays. If he does play, I love him. Top 5 running back this week.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift completely off the injury report.
Good
Not
news.
being on it on a Wednesday is a good sign. And he did get upgraded in my rankings. You saw that yesterday in the podcast. After we saw him take, a few more roles for this team, kind of getting some upgrades in a few different departments. So he's a low-end RB2 with upside. And hopefully we can have his role grow even more this week.
I don't see why it wouldn't. You have to think at this point. And I thought he was, fine and healthy, not capable of carrying the workload that we want him to a couple weeks ago. But they haven't used him that way. Maybe they're just waiting for him to be completely in the clear. I mean, Jamal Williams, he's scoring touchdowns there, but DeAndre Swift, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a better week this week, because
I wouldn't be either.
What he's had these past few weeks is just like an abomination in terms of usage. They shouldn't be giving him that few touches a game. I think if they use him just a little bit more, he could get to that point where he's suddenly a viable RB2 for you with upside.
It's supposed to be a high scoring game too. So, I wouldn't feel, I'll feel okay putting him in my lineup this week, in my flex spot.
For the first time in 10 weeks, right?
It's terrible. Jamar Chase should return this week. He started the week off with a limited practice. Good sign for him. He was supposed to return last week after getting a couple limited practices in, but hopefully he's able to pull in a full or two this week.
Right.
But I'm expecting him to play this week. Damian Harris, he's out tonight. So wheels up for Ramondre Stevenson. He's a top 5 running back play this week. Jacoby Myers is also a little bit banged up. He's questionable for tonight. We don't know if he's going to play or not. But if he does play, I'm not sure if he's going to get a full workload. I'm not sure if he'll be there, on every snap.
Right.
So, Devontae Parker, he's healthy right now. He might actually be an interesting DFS play. And I haven't got to my underdog stuff yet, but I have a feeling that I'm going to be putting in some Devontae Parker hires on his receiving yardage total for tonight. Outside of that, obviously, outside of Ramondre, we talked about Devin Singletary. He's like my RB 30 on the week. Not overly excited about him going up against the Patriots. Stephon Diggs, we'll see where he's ranked this week. Spoiler alert, he's at number 2. Who else? Mac Jones, I'm not super excited about starting him even in 2 quarterback leagues.
Right.
That's pretty much it. Obviously, Josh Allen is starting. Am I missing anybody? Oh, Gabe Davis. He's in my top 25, I think, 24. He has a good matchup on that left side. The Patriots have been giving up. They've been bottom 10 in fantasy points given up to that left side. So solid matchup for Gabriel Davis. So if you're looking for a boom bust play, I think he's a good one this week.
Yeah. As always, it's Gabe Davis.
I'm trying to think of who else is on this team. I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it. You could for the Patriots and Bills, or just Patriots. I mean, you talk about both teams. Yeah, I mean, you could say James Cook and Nyheim Hines, but Nyheim Hines hasn't gotten any touches. He's done nothing. And then James Cook, he's just kind of a rotation.
That's really about it. And at tight end, like Hunter Henry's like a dart throw, and so is
Dawson Knox.
His name? Dawson Knox.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what they've been all season. So it doesn't really change. And both of these defenses are good in their own right. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Najee Harris didn't practice on Wednesday either, but Jaylen Warren did. So he's the guy you want to play this week. Apparently, Warren has been cleared, and he will be good to go this week. I don't think that is set in stone, but I would assume that's the case moving forward. So if you picked up Benny Snell, I would check if Jaylen Warren's on your waiver wire because he is available in a lot of waiver wires. And if he's going this week, he's going to be a solid play. Like I would probably have him in my top 30 in terms of running backs this week.
Yeah, and he's looked good, and you would know to have Jaylen Warren on your roster already, if you listen to the podcast, because he's been on the waiver wire. He's been a mainstay on our waiver wire posts and, the podcast the past couple of weeks. I mean, ever since I don't want to say ever since Najee looked bad because he looked bad.
I don't even say past couple of weeks. I would say like the past 6 or 7.
That's what I was gonna say. Ever since Najee looked bad, I would say, well, he was bad out of the gate. So maybe, he's been on the waiver wire a while for us.
Yeah, Najee has looked better as of late. So maybe Najee can, once he's back, he can do some things for you. Christian McCaffrey didn't practice on Wednesday, but monitor his reports this week. It seems like he will end up playing, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah.
In terms of who's behind him, we talked about it yesterday. We saw Jordan Mason, do his thing, but Tyrion Davis-Price wasn't active for that game. Jordan Mason was active mostly because he plays special teams. My guess is that Tyrion Davis-Price is Christian McCaffrey's backup.
Yeah.
Right now, with Elijah Mitchell out.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the case too. I'm not worried too much about Christian McCaffrey at this point right now, even though he didn't practice. I feel like they understand they're dealing with, a player that's dealt with a lot of injuries before, and they just want to keep him clean and just avoid any type of aggravation at this point. And I think he's going to play ultimately, but I do think he'll be on a snap count a little bit, not a humongous snap count, but enough that you don't have to worry about him getting injured and running him into the ground too much, So I'd expect that workload to be back next week, but this week, and we've said this on the past couple episodes, just temper expectations for him a little bit, not because of the talent, but just because the workload might not be what we want it to be. It makes complete sense why they want to take it easy with Christian McCaffrey, especially with, playoff hopes pretty high in San Francisco right now. They want to have him for the stretch run.
Agreed. Joe Mixon, he's expected to play this week after practicing on Wednesday. Still in the protocol, but he should be cleared soon.
Yeah.
David Njoku is dealing with a new knee injury, and he didn't practice on Wednesday because of that. So if you have Njoku, I'd be monitoring this pretty closely. I wouldn't assume that this is just remnants of an old injury. Kevin Stefanski said it's a new one. So
Yeah.
something to monitor. Dallas Goedert said he hopes to return in week 15 from IR. That would be awesome because that's when the fantasy playoffs start. So don't drop him if you have him.
No, you've probably had him on IR. I mean, he's one of the few high-end tight ends out there. But outside of Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and TJ Hawkinson as of late. So definitely hold on to him because he's going to be a contributor at some point the rest of the season. I have him in one league. I've been strolling through. I think the reason I lost, I did a little deeper dive into the reason I lost last week by 1 point. It's because I didn't start Hayden Hurst. I started Trey McBride with hopes that he would be able to do something. So that one's staying a little bit, but
that's the reason.
as soon as Dallas Goedert gets back, you better believe he's going in the lineups. You don't have to have any hesitation with him. Once he's back, start him. He's a bona fide tight end one.
Exactly. Even in his first game back, even if they're like, oh, they're gonna put him on a limited snap count. I don't care. I'm playing him. All right, let's move on to wide receivers. Let's do it. I got Davante Adams at number 1 this week against the Chargers. 50.5 projected total this week for this game. The Chargers have given up the 9th most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers this year. So I think Adams is in for a good day.
I think so, absolutely. I think this one screams like, fantasy points again. And the Chargers were in a high fantasy point outing last week against the Cardinals. And this is just another matchup for the Chargers that's going to have a lot of fantasy points. Davante Adams, as of late, has been on an absolute tear. And even though the point total, this past week wasn't tremendous like it was a few weeks before that, but he's gone through weeks 9 to 12. He has 17 targets, 14 targets, 13 targets, 11 targets. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, he's on an absolute tear right now. So just keep buying into that target share, coming his way. Derek Carr's finally dialing in on him. He was a little bit iffy on and off to open the season, but now he's on a hot streak. And Davante Adams, he has a chance to be the wide receiver 1 every single week.
We got Stephon Diggs at number 2 against New England. Not a matchup you need to worry about. We've seen number 1 wide receivers do their thing against New England this year. Justin Jefferson last week absolutely killed it. So nothing really to worry about there, especially on that left side where they're extremely vulnerable. But either way, I think Stephon Diggs is going to be able to do his thing. Josh Allen, assuming he's getting a little healthier as well. So I don't think Stephon Diggs is going to have any problems this week against New England.
No, you can't bet against any of these top guys, regardless of the matchup. It doesn't change much, their matchup with these guys. It just might hamper their upside a little bit.
It just feels like I'm shuffling these like top 5 guys like every single week based on the matchup, pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And like I said, with Stephon Diggs, with any of these guys, the matchup isn't going to be a humongous indicator, but we have to find something to split these guys up. So exactly. that might be the reason that we have him down below Davante Adams, because Davante Adams is in a perfect matchup. Stephon Diggs, he's a very good receiver, but the matchup is just a little bit worse.
Tyreek Hill at 3 against San Francisco. Relatively tough matchup, but with him running so many routes from the slot, there's still a chance that he pops. The 49ers haven't been good defending the slot this year. And then I got Justin Jefferson at 4 against the Jets. I'm getting my popcorn ready for this one against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed.
Yep.
And these corners are going to be ready for this matchup. So, overall, it's been a tough matchup for perimeter wide receivers, and that's why Jefferson is all the way down at number 4.
Yeah. That he does draw a really tough matchup because regardless if he's going against Sauce Gardner or DJ Reed, he's going to be you have to fight for the yards and, catches all day. And Justin Jefferson can obviously do that. But it's not a very good matchup.
If I had to bet on anybody, it would be Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, right.
To beat this coverage.
Right, 100%. But, don't text Faraz after 1 o'clock. He's going to be watching a game.
Yeah.
He's got his popcorn. He said, I'm going to be watching a game too closely because that's a big one. I'm excited to see how he does. Justin Jefferson against the corners because, the really young corners, in New York, and they could really be nice cornerstones for this defense.
I hope so. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm tempted to put him over Jefferson this week, but I can't get myself to do it. But this matchup is another high-scoring game, and the Jaguars have given up the 3rd most fantasy points to slot wide receivers over the last 8 games. And Amon-Ra has run a majority of his routes from the slot this year. He's been running a little bit more outside too. And there are some vulnerabilities, on the outside against the Jaguars as well. So, I love Amon-Ra this week, and, him too. He's been killing it over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of tweets out, especially from Ian Hart, that's talking about his target totals when there's no injury that's concerning him right now. And I'm just gonna find it real quick. His receptions in the last 14 games not impacted by injury: 10, 8, 8, 9, 8, 8, 8, 9, 6, 7, 4, 10, 7, 9. So like when he's not injured, the dude is just getting targets. And the past couple weeks he's been getting it done.
Yeah, not just targets.
I'm sorry, the catches.
It's not just targets. It's not like he's getting fed 12 targets and catching 5 or 6 of them. He's catching a majority of his targets. I don't know what that catch rate is because I don't know the exact totals. Ridiculous. But it's just super high. And I think you could argue that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a safer wide receiver this week than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I would say so.
And I think it could warrant him being at 4 over Justin Jefferson and moving him down at 5. But we know what type of receiver Justin Jefferson is.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to, make the distinction. I think Justin Jefferson's upside is higher just because of the offense that he's in. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's going to be a really nice fantasy wide receiver for you every single week. And we've seen that, and he's going to continue to be that way just as long as he stays healthy. And this is a really good matchup against Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence has come on. The offense has looked a lot better, for the Jaguars. So I think that it's going to be a really big game, high-scoring game. One that's kind of flying under the radar because there are a lot of good matchups this week.
Yeah. Jamar Chase, he should be back. I have him at 6. I think they've been holding him back a little bit until he's 100%. So I'd expect him to bring it this week in a great matchup and a high-scoring game against Kansas City. And then you have CeeDee Lamb at 7, AJ Brown at 8, T. Higgins at 9. I really want to target these guys in this Chiefs-Bengals game. That's why I still have T. Higgins in the top 10.
Yeah.
And then I moved Chris Godwin up to 10, double-digit targets in 6 of his last 8 games. And the touchdowns, finally came over the last 2 weeks. Him and Brady are just not. Him and Brady are in sync right now, and Mike Evans and Brady are not in sync right now.
Yeah, it's gone very cold for Mike Evans, and things have really heated up for Chris Godwin. But I just contradicted myself because I want to say things have really heated up. I guess in terms of production, they've really heated up for Chris Godwin. But we've seen this usage since week 6.
Yeah,
12, 13, 11, 10, 8, 13 targets in his last 6 games. Like that's just ridiculous. 7 games, sorry. That's just ridiculous. He's getting targeted regardless of the matchup and regardless of the game script. They've been in games. They've been out of games. It's just a Chris Godwin show at this point. Mike Evans, he's being phased out. I don't know why. You can't really explain it, but right now the hot hand is, extremely hot. Like it's on fire right now with Chris Godwin. So you can't avoid that. You can't ignore it either. I think that him being in the top 10 is a no-brainer, especially against New Orleans. I mean, I know they've struggled recently, but this is a different team than Tom Brady's faced the past few years where he struggled.
I got Jalen Waddle at 11. I moved him down a bit because of the tough matchup against San Francisco. But Christian Kirk, man, I love his matchup this week against Detroit. Maybe I need to move him up over Waddle. I'll think about it.
Maybe.
But he had a tough matchup last week. He didn't come through. But this week, he goes up against Detroit, who has been giving up the 5th most fantasy points to slot wide receivers this year. Their over-under is at 51.5. Christian Kirk has to be in lineups this week.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I was tempted to say, just right off the bat, move him up over Jalen Waddle just because of the matchup. But the thing is, Christian Kirk, he's been on and off this season. And we know Zay Jones is liable to have the Zay Jones game every few weeks. Obviously, that was last week. I don't know if that's going to continue moving forward, if it's going to be this week. But this is a really good matchup. You can't ignore it. The Lions' defense has not been good. And even though they've been much more competitive in games recently and they brought the Bills to the wire, it's still like the team that's going to have trouble stopping opposing offenses. And this offense suddenly has weapons, especially if Travis Etienne plays, that can allow more balance and Christian Kirk can get some higher quality targets than just, chucking it up in the air. But I think Christian Kirk should be a wide receiver 1. I'm tempted to put the guy we have beneath him above him just because I'm an Amari Cooper guy. But with Deshaun Watson, I'm not sure I would do that. We'll see. I'd like to see them play together because Jacoby Brissett was doing just fine.
I was going to say, I have Amari Cooper at 13 against Houston. We'll see how he does with Deshaun Watson, but there's no guarantees here, right? I feel like this ranking might be a little bit too aggressive, given what we don't know and, what the fact that we don't know what to expect between him and Watson.
It's true. So the other, Yeah. Okay. Now you're persuading me against it, but we'll see. Because now I'm also thinking, like I said, we talked all week and we talked especially yesterday about the Browns potentially leaning on the run game a lot heavier because they don't need to, put Deshaun Watson in and ask him to do too much full throttle coming off, a 2-year hiatus almost. That's essentially what it is. So maybe that's more run centric. I think Amari Cooper can get it done anyway, but you're right. Now I'm questioning his ceiling because you have the fact that they're going to lean on the run game, and we don't know what Deshaun Watson's going to look like. It might be a little high. I think it's easy to bet on the talent because we know Amari Cooper's a good receiver, and he's done very well with Jacoby Brissett. But there's a lot of more question marks that need to be, answered before we can, I think, rank him that high. So maybe we bump him down a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I love Keenan Allen's matchup, right? I have him at 14. Yep. Against the Raiders. Like, as we talked about all year long, the Raiders have been absolutely terrible against slot wide receivers. That's where Keenan Allen runs most of his routes from.
Yeah.
And then DK Metcalf at 15, Tyler Lockett at 16. I'm always going to pair these two like right next to each other.
This is exactly where they were in the rankings last week. I didn't have to touch them. This is exactly how we had them.
I love it. Garrett Wilson at 17. I love him this week against Minnesota. With Mike White. I think he can have a big day. I have Christian Watson right after him at 18. Do I love Wilson's matchup too much? Like, should we move Watson ahead of Wilson?
No.
Against Chicago?
Nope. No, I think Garrett Wilson deserves to be at 17 over Watson at 18. I'd argue maybe Garrett Wilson could be put over Tyler Lockett.
Okay.
Because the Rams defense, Aaron Donald, he might not play this week.
He's not playing.
He might have been ruled out. Yeah.
There you ruled him out.
That's a big blow. But it's still a division game for them. I think that it'll be close enough. The Seahawks have kind of cooled down a little bit on offense recently, outside of last week. But I think that Garrett Wilson should be ranked pretty high this week because we see that Mike White obviously knows how to get the ball to his playmaker, and that's Garrett Wilson, and he's looked good in the games that he's been able to benefit from non-subpar QB play. So, and the matchup, like you said, is fantastic. The Vikings pass defense is just horrific. I think that Garrett Wilson is in for a big day.
I think so too. I mean, I think he has more upside than Tyler Lockett, but Lockett's on a roll right now, man. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. Like, it's just like, if I have Lockett, I really would have a hard time benching him for Garrett Wilson just because he's been getting it done for me.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. But if you want to play the upside game. If you need to punch into the playoffs, punch your ticket. Tyler Lockett, he's been middle of the pack, but that's been reliable for you. Garrett Wilson, though, I think has a really good upside.
Yeah,
I feel like we have him ranked really high. Would you be disappointed if he had a game quieter than like 5 catches for 70 yards?
Yeah, I'll be disappointed. Yeah.
Okay.
I would be for sure if I'm ranking him here.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, in general, like 5 catches for 70 yards isn't bad. Maybe if 5 catches, 70 yards, a touchdown, is that still a disappointment or no?
No.
Okay, so
5 for 70 a touchdown. I'm happy. I'm happy.
I think he could.
Because that's pretty much what you're expecting from Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Like 5 for 60 and a touchdown, And then I got Terry McLaurin at 19, Brandon Aiyuk at 20. Solid matchups for both of these guys. On that left side where McLaurin runs most of his routes from, he's been, that's where the Giants' vulnerability is. I'm still okay starting him. He hasn't necessarily got it done over the last couple of weeks, but we know he's still getting targeted. I'm cool starting him. Brandon Aiyuk. Debo's a little bit banged up right now. So I think, Aiyuk can potentially get it done. And in this game, we have no idea how this game is going to go. High scoring, low scoring, what's going to happen this week, with Miami. But if it's a game where Miami can put up points, then, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to throw it a little bit. And I think Aiyuk has a plus matchup this week.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup because if the Dolphins offense does any type of scoring against this defense, they're obviously going to have Brandon Aiyuk contributing in the passing game. Deebo Samuel, oddly enough, he's been super quiet, and that doesn't really make sense to me. You said he's maybe a little banged up. I thought he was back, from injury. He was back pretty well, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Jimmy Garoppolo also seems to just be looking for Brandon Aiyuk more often. Yeah, and he's had really good target share, I think, the past few weeks.
He has. I mean, this makes sense to me. I mean, second half of last season, Aiyuk was out targeting Debo, right? And now you bring in Christian McCaffrey, who's getting, a bunch of targets out of the backfield. And those were Debo's targets before. Those low ADOT targets, that was all Debo before. And now it's Christian McCaffrey. So this move to trade for McCaffrey like hurt Debo the most. And that's what we said, from the beginning when Christian McCaffrey got traded to the 49ers, like this was going to happen. And Debo gets downgraded, and I don't even have him here at the top 20. I think you'll see where I have him. Like I have him down at 30. this
Okay,
week.
yeah, I was gonna say, should I spoil it? Because he
Yeah,
barely cracks the top 30 because he is
yeah,
30.
and his target share has really gone down, and on top of that, he's hurt. So, listen, Kittle has a good matchup this week.
Mhm.
McCaffrey's gonna likely play. Ayuk has a good matchup too, and he's been the target share leader.
Yep.
So where does Debo fall here? He has to get it done on a catch and long run for a touchdown, or he gets a run out of the backfield or something like that. In
Mhm.
the red zone. But he's gonna have to do something miraculous for him to be a top 24 wide receiver. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah, so that's why I have him so low. I have Mike Evans at 21. Moved him down a ton. I moved him down like 10 spots this week.
This is
Just
Yeah, this is where he has to be. With the way that he's produced, the inconsistency that he's had, and he was inconsistent to open the season, and it's okay to be inconsistent if your boom days are 30 points, 26 points, like he was having. But he is now consistently bad. Like he's been under, I think, 10 PPR points past 3 weeks. Like it's been bad. I don't know what it's about. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, Chris Godwin getting a bunch of targets might explain some of it, but Mike Evans is a much better talent than this. And we haven't really seen this before with Mike Evans. A stretch this long of bad games. So
he had a
uncharted
good
territory.
run. He had a good run between weeks 4 and 8, where he had 3 games over 80 yards
Yeah.
receiving. But he only in that span he only had 2 touchdowns. He only has 3 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
And then lately over his last 3 games, 5 for 40, 5 for 54, and 2 for 31. So they need to get on the same page. We don't know if Marshawn Lattimore is going to play this week or not. He started practicing last week. There's a chance that he still doesn't play.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, Marshawn Lattimore, has been Mike Evans' kryptonite
Mm-hmm.
over his career. So if he doesn't play, then you're kind of feeling better
Yeah.
about Evans. And even if Marshawn Lattimore does play, I don't know if he's going to play a full
If
complement of snaps.
if I'm not mistaken, they ejected each other. They got themselves ejected in
Yeah.
week 2. So yes, I'd say
That's not
kryptonite.
good either. That's
No.
not good either because Mike Evans won't play if that
Yeah.
happens.
No, obviously. Yeah. But the other thing that's kind of sticking out to me, you mentioned the past 3 weeks that he's had such low output. He's caught 12 passes, but he's been targeted 26 times. That's under
Yeah.
50% catch rate on those targets. That's just like I said, unprecedented. I never saw that coming from Mike Evans, especially with Tom Brady at quarterback. I thought that was better, but I don't think this is like regression or any problem with Mike Evans. It's just not going the Buccaneers' way. Not only for fantasy, but just this season in general. So it's been weird seeing the Buccaneers kind of fall out of relevance for fantasy outside of maybe Chris Godwin because the running backs are kind of barren. Tom Brady, he's low end QB2 at best right now. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Chris Olave at 22 against Tampa. He should get his targets in this game. Are you starting Chris Olave or Mike Evans?
They're both rough matchups. I would go with Chris Olave just because I trust that he'll have a role more than Mike Evans. There's not as much competition for targets, especially
agreed.
with Rashad White. Coming out of the backfield, he got a bunch of targets last week.
True.
That might also be part of it. I mean, I know Mike Evans is a downfield threat, so Rashad White isn't going to be chopping into that. But there's not any weapons outside of Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara on the Saints offense.
Did the Bucks play on Monday night?
Yeah, they're the Monday night game.
Okay, so that's why we didn't get any practice reports yesterday. I was wondering
Right.
about Leonard Fournette for a second. I'm like, wait, did we hear anything? No, we didn't. Their first official practice is today, Friday, and then Saturday.
Yep.
Okay, so I got JuJu at 23. On the confidence scale, you might want to play him over Mike Evans too. Honestly, we might have to move Mike Evans down.
In a very good matchup against Cincinnati, JuJu Smith-Schuster has a chance to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati has been good against wide receivers this year. And it's one of those things though where it's Patrick Mahomes, right? And it's like, he's what makes things good matchups. And I think JuJu can still get it done. Last week, JuJu was on a snap count. He didn't run too many routes. He only got a couple catches. But I would expect him to be, 100% good to go this week.
Is there a negative matchup with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback? I just don't feel like that's really a thing. And I don't want to, blow smoke up his ass too much, but Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes.
He deserves it.
He's a complete game changer. Like I haven't seen personally the level of play from Patrick Mahomes at such a consistent level, in all of my watching of football. even Tom Brady he's looked good, but Tom Brady wasn't like, wow, highlight real plays. He was just like good. It's like, wow, this guy is really good at what he does.
Like the days of Peyton Manning, like that was to me, those were like the days where it was just like every single week, like holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
like he doesn't do like, behind the back fucking passes like Patrick Mahomes does and like, these like sidearm throws.
It wasn't
and
as
shit.
flashy, yeah.
It wasn't as flashy, but like the throws that he would make, like unbelievable. So like he was probably the best arm talent that I've seen, in me watching football. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes is right there.
Yeah,
he's right there.
In terms of fantasy, like he's just unstoppable. It doesn't matter. And every season we come into, we talked about this a little bit. We come into the season saying like, is it worth drafting Patrick Mahomes because he's a quarterback? Yes, because he's a lock for 20-some, 30-some points every week. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. That's just what he does.
And then I got Michael Pittman at 24 against Dallas. He's going to see. I don't think he gets shadowed this week.
Trayvon Diggs hasn't shadowed hardly anybody. I mean, they don't move him around too much. I mean, they were leaving Anthony Brown in coverage against Darius Slayton, and he was getting sunned. So,
yeah, I'm not sure why he's listed here as a projected shadow, but he's been on his side on 90% of routes run against him. So yeah, so I doubt it. But Michael Pittman does run most of his routes against Trayvon Diggs, so just keep that in mind. But he does move around a little bit, so I'm not too worried about him. I'm not trying to stay off of him or anything like that. Wouldn't worry about it too much. Like Anthony Brown, that their side has been giving up the fourth most fantasy points to wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. So they have been giving up a little bit of points lately. So hopefully Michael Pittman can take advantage of that this week. And then you got Devonta Smith at 25 against Tennessee. This is a pretty good matchup for Devonta Smith. I know this passing offense has been quiet lately, but it's one of those situations where against Tennessee, Devonta Smith runs most of his routes on the right side and the slot, and Tennessee has been giving up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers on that right side and the ninth most in the slot this year. So, and that's why I love AJ Brown too, because on that left side, Tennessee's been giving up the fourth most fantasy points. So I know this team isn't the most pass heavy team, but against Tennessee, I feel like they might be, because they're a very tough rush defense, and I feel like they're going to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands in this game, and they're going to air it out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Titans, how they got toasted. I think it was by Davante Adams earlier in the season. Or no, it wasn't Davante Adams. Stephon Diggs. They got toasted in week 1. And then they kind of did that thing where they double the number 1 receiver on the team, and they just take him out of the game. Yeah, and then they stopped last week against T. Higgins. But it's interesting. I feel like they're going to be extra motivated to make sure that A.J. Brown does not have a big day against them. Because remember, this is the team that traded A.J. Brown, because they didn't want to pay him. And now he's with the Eagles, and he's like having a good season. I think Devonta Smith, because of that, they might go back to that coverage, double cover AJ Brown, make sure he doesn't have a big day. Devonta Smith could be wide open.
I can see it.
That could definitely be something I see happening.
Last week, Higgins went 7 for 114 and a touchdown. The week before that, you had Christian Watson getting those 2 touchdowns, and then Allen Lazard had a decent game. Randall Cobb had a decent game. So, this is one of the situations where I would try to have wide receivers against Tennessee, especially on an offense like this and talents like this, like Devonta Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Josh Palmer at 26. I'm assuming Mike Evans isn't playing this week, so that's why I have Josh Palmer here.
Mike Williams, not Mike Evans. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm assuming Mike Williams isn't going to play this week. He hasn't practiced yet. We'll see what his practice reports are today and tomorrow. But I have Josh Palmer here. Palmer's been like low-key getting it done, dude. And I'm honestly surprised that he's still able to get it done. Now, Keenan Allen didn't get a huge target share last week, and I think that's an anomaly. We had Josh Palmer, get some targets. We had DeAndre Carter. I think he had double-digit targets last week. I don't think that's going to happen that often.
No.
So I would think that it's going to be Keenan Allen. Yeah. I would assume that Josh Palmer is going to be the guy, getting targets behind him before DeAndre Carter does. So I think the targets are going to be redistributed this week, especially with Mike Williams again. Williams out.
We had DeAndre Carter. Yeah, he did have 10 targets last week, and he caught 7 of them, and he did score a touchdown. So that was a good week for him. But like we said, this is going to reshuffle. Keenan Allen should get full complement now. That might have been the test run last week to see obviously he had been out a while, just a test run to see if he's back and 100%. And, he passed that test with flying colors with the work that he got. Having Keenan Allen back, I think benefits Josh Palmer a ton. And that's going to help him stay relevant these next few weeks. As long as Mike Williams is out. So with Mike Williams out, and Keenan Allen in the lineup, Justin Herbert has looked like a completely different quarterback. He looks like the Justin Herbert that we've come to know. And I can't say I didn't call it. I did. But he looks really good. And with Justin Herbert throwing very well, and the offense in very good matchup this week against the Raiders, I wouldn't be keeping Josh Palmer out of my lineup if I had him. He could have a huge game. And he did. I think it was through 2 or 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, maybe. In the game where he wasn't supposed to have a big game. That was when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, were they both back in the lineup?
They were both active.
Yeah. They both played.
Josh Palmer scored a touchdown on the first drive of the play, a long touchdown on the first drive.
Yep.
Then Mike Williams had a catch and then was out. And then Josh Palmer just went off.
Yeah. So, yeah. I guess maybe because now he's supposed to do well, he won't. We'll see.
It's a high scoring matchup. It's against Vegas and it's a good matchup too. So, it's one of the situations where you want to target these type of games. So I'm totally fine having Josh Palmer in my lineup as a flex play, wide receiver 3 play.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis, I mentioned him already. Tonight, New England, he lines up on the left side most of the time. He runs most of his routes from the left side. And this year, Buffalo has given up the second most fantasy points. No, I'm sorry. New England has given up the second most fantasy points to slot to that left perimeter over the last 8 weeks and over the last 4 weeks. So it's a spot where you want to target, and Gabe Davis could potentially go off because of that.
Yeah, would love to see that. 100%.
Oh yeah, Treylon Burks.
He's had some quiet games recently. He's been more of a bust than a boom recently. So hopefully we can see him get back into the mix of things.
Yeah, the good thing about Gabe Davis is that before this past game, he had a couple, decent target games. 7 targets, 10 targets. So that's a good sign for him.
Right.
But
they clearly want to have him involved.
Yeah, we would have hoped for a better game against Detroit last week, but
yeah,
it is what it is. Treylon Burks at 28 this week. I think his upside is a lot higher than a lot of these guys we have around him. But Tennessee, you just never really know how they're going to attack, right? You never know if they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, if they're going to be running the ball a lot. If we knew that they were a balanced offense, then I think I would have Burks higher because his target share has been there. His targets per route run has been there. But that's why we keep bringing up targets per route run with Treylon Burks because, the volume isn't necessarily there for this passing offense on a consistent basis. So I think Burks, I'm not worried about the matchup, in terms of Darius Slay or anything like that, because we've seen over the last couple of weeks, Philly has been giving up some decent weeks to wide receivers. This is not a matchup where you're Darius Slay, is just going to shut it down, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you look at what happened last week, Christian Watson, right, 4 for 110 and a touchdown. The week before that, Michael Pittman, 6 for 75, not terrible. Terry McLaurin the week before that, 8 for 128. So, this isn't a matchup that you necessarily have to stay away from for your wide receiver. So this isn't a scary matchup for me if I have Treylon Burks.
And Treylon Burks has looked pretty darn good these past 2 weeks.
Oh yeah,
he's healthy and he's looking like he's going to be a bigger factor in the offense moving forward. And I'm not too worried about it because he's the number 1 wide receiver on this offense. The only thing with Treylon Burks, you assume the risk of the Titans leaning heavy into whatever they decide to do on a given day. Like you said, if they're going to run the ball, well, guess what? They're going to be running the ball. Ryan Tannehill might attempt 20 passes. And then there are days where they decide, we're going to throw the ball. And then now suddenly Ryan Tannehill's getting closer to 40 passes. It's it makes no sense. If it's just an off day, you're going to have that issue. I think for that reason, I would keep him under Gabe Davis right now because Gabe Davis is just about the same thing, but he's on better offense. So
and he has a much better matchup too.
Yeah, the matchup too also does that. Even though New England's tough, but when you look deeper into it, on the surface, New England's a tough matchup. You look deeper into it, like you said, it's not that bad a matchup. So I would keep Treylon Burks here, but the upside is definitely there against Philly, especially. I'm not saying they're going to get into garbage time, but if they get into any type of situation where they're in a negative game script, that they're going to be throwing the ball. Treylon Burks is going to be the guy catching it.
If Richie James can go 5 for 41 and a touchdown out of the slot against Dallas, like he did last week, I think Parris Campbell can do so as well.
Assuming they throw him the ball, right?
Yeah.
Because that they did not do last week.
No, they did not. And I have him at 29. That's a little bit of a downgrade for Parris Campbell because of what we saw last week. And it was super. I was wondering why they weren't passing him the ball,
Yeah.
Against the Steelers. The last 2 weeks, the Steelers have been shut down against the slot. Tyler Boyd, Parris Campbell, they've both been shut down pretty much. So, maybe the Steelers are doing something different because they know that was one of their vulnerabilities. But Parris Campbell, I still think he's a solid wide receiver 3 this week. We've seen most games with Matt Ryan where he's being peppered, so I would. That's why I have him over Debo, who I have at 30, because I think there's a higher chance that Parris Campbell gets a high target share, gets a bunch of receptions, and and honestly, Parris Campbell had those 3 games with those 3 touchdowns, but Debo probably has a better chance of scoring. So if you're in a standard league, I'd probably go Debo. If you're in a PPR league, I'll probably go Parris.
Yeah, Parris Campbell makes sense. I'd bet on Parris Campbell's receiving work out touching, Debo Samuel's wide back work every week, at least at this point, moving forward. Unless something drastic changes, like maybe Brandon Aiyuk gets hurt. I'm not going to hope for that. But unless something like that happens where Debo Samuel is in line for more work, he's going to be suffering from the effects of Christian McCaffrey being traded. And we talked about that. But Parris Campbell, he can definitely get it done. Like I said, especially if, Matt Ryan throws the ball to him. We've seen he does good things. We just need Matt Ryan to throw him the ball. The only thing that concerns me is that the pass game might be, shaky at best because of the pass rush. We talked about Matt Ryan being slow, moving in the pocket, and Dallas has a pretty good pass rush. So we'll see how that adds up. But maybe if they get into garbage time, Parris Campbell could do some things.
The hope is that, because of that pass rush, they realize that Parris Campbell is their wide receiver that they should throw to because he runs those short routes.
Those quick out, quick in,
Exactly. Like that's what Parris Campbell does best. So hopefully they realize that. All right, let's get into tight ends real quick before we close out the show. Travis Kelce at number 1, no surprise there. Mark Andrews at number 2. Against Denver. TJ Hockenson at 3. At this point, like these guys are just kind of these 3 guys are going to be the top 3 guys all season long.
That was what I was just about to ask you. I was like, do you think these guys are locked in as the top 3 for
pretty
further
much?
Notice? Like
pretty much, unless Hockenson has like this ridiculously good matchup, I might put him over Andrews. Certain weeks, but for the most part, this is how it's going to be locked in regardless of matchup.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much a bona fide top 3. The Vikings are the only team that traded for a player. And they're using him how they, should after trading for him. If you add him, if you go out of your way to add him at the deadline, you're going to use him. Nyheim Hines not doing it. Chase Edmonds not getting usage over in Denver, but that's a whole different story. Just TJ Hockenson has been a revelation at the tight end position for fantasy football. He looks much better in Vikings purple than he did in the Lions because they weren't using him over in Detroit.
Hawkinson's target share went down just 1 week, but I don't care. Like I feel like it's just going to pop right back up. And Thielen had a good week last week, but I think it's going to go back the other way, where it's Hockenson over Thielen.
Yeah.
And then George Kittle, I have him here at number 4. This is a good matchup for him against Miami, so that's why I moved him up over Pat Freiermuth and Dalton Schultz. And then I have Pat Freiermuth at 5, Dalton Schultz at 6. Freiermuth has a little bit of a better matchup than Dalton Schultz, so that's why I put him up there. He's getting the target share. So I it's really close between Freiermuth and Schultz. Schultz is, it's a good matchup too for him. Like I'm not worried about it at all. But like these are like the top 6 that you can really depend on. Outside of this, it's a crapshoot.
It's a complete crapshoot. I would add David Njoku into that if he didn't have the knee injury. I'd say you could.
I agree. If he didn't have the knee injury, like I would agree.
Yeah, because that's pretty much it. I mean, Deshaun Watson, obviously there's questions there. We'll see how it goes. But
that too.
Rest of season, David Njoku, I would put him there. If he can come out of this injury, problem again, which he's dealt with a little bit this season, I think he can kind of ascend to that tier. Because at this point, anybody can do that if they have like 2 straight good weeks. So we'll see how that goes. But I think Dalton Schultz is fine. The only thing that worries me a little bit about Dalton Schultz moving forward is that Dallas is running 4 tight end sets like a lot now. Suddenly, they're running 4 tight ends. It makes no sense, but it's working too. They have 2 good tight ends behind him that have actually been contributing. Did you see Jake Ferguson hurdle that guy on Thanksgiving? Like, come on.
No, it's true. I mean, Schultz's route participation has gone down each of the last 2 weeks, so that's something I'm concerned about. The target share has gone down as well each of the last 2 weeks, so yeah, something to be concerned about. That's not going away for Freiermuth. And that's another reason to have him over Schultz this week.
Mm-hmm. Just something to keep an eye on moving forward. I think Dalton Schultz is still the best tight end they have there. And Dak is obviously looking for him a lot, but we'll see how things, change moving forward because, like I said, they didn't run that 4 tight end set a lot until the last 2 weeks. So we'll see how things go there.
David Njoku at 7. Hopefully that knee injury is fine. That new knee injury that Kevin Stefanski is talking about. Hopefully he'll be okay. And we'll see how if Deshaun Watson likes to target him or not. Right, that's another thing to keep in mind.
It's one of the things we're watching for this week is just see how things go with Deshaun Watson. I mean,
who does he target? All that. Amari Cooper.
You want to take a lot from it, but you don't because it's just 1 week. I think it's going to be a run heavy scheme that they're drawing up. Like I said, to take pressure off Deshaun Watson. At the same time, it's Houston, so that's what you want to run at. You want to run at the Houston defense, but definitely want to see how the usage goes. Who gets targeted and who doesn't.
Cole Kmet at number 8 here against Green Bay. I think Justin Fields is going to play this week, and if he does play, I'm cool, rolling with Kmet this week. If he doesn't play, then I'm probably not going to start him.
Yeah,
but who else are you going to start, right? It's tough. I got Gerald Everett at 9 against Vegas. A couple of good tight ends have had good days against them, so I'm cool rolling him out. And then Foster Moreau against the Chargers. You had a couple of good tight ends play well against them, and then not so good tight ends didn't do well. This looks like a good matchup on paper. It might not be as good of a matchup as you think, but the good thing about Moreau, at least, is that he's running close to a 100% route participation, which is, you can't say that for a lot of tight ends. Yeah. So that's the good thing. So he'll be out there for every play, for every pass play. That's what you want. So hopefully, 100%. If he, apparently Darren Waller can come back at some point. They don't know if he's going to come back next week or not, but for now, I think you can start Moreau, as a solid tight end 1.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going to be. Like the way the landscape is, that's what he will do for you. With Cole Kmet, it is completely dependent on whether Justin Fields plays, if I'm going to start him or not. That's all it is. That's like night and day, especially with, Darnell Mooney now out. Justin Fields was targeting Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet pretty much, most consistently. And without Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet could be in line for more work if Justin Fields plays. And I think he's going to. So this is a fine ranking for me. And Gerald Everett, I think it's a pretty good matchup. Like you said, it looks good. I think it really looks good. I'm tempted to move him up a little bit, Gerald Everett, maybe, but I'm just going to temper expectations for now because
my only thing with Everett, he's been in good matchups, but he hasn't gotten done. Right? Yeah. And also, it's because his route participation is low, like 60% of route participation. He's not running a route on most of these dropbacks. So, and now it's apparently Justin Herbert likes a lot of these other wide receivers too, right? Mm-hmm. Palmer and DeAndre Carter and Eckler, and Keenan, so it's like, where does Joe ever fit in that picture?
Right.
It's an unknown right now.
He's having some Debo syndrome right now.
Pretty much.
Too many weapons around him.
I'm going to roll through these other tight ends quickly.
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee. It all depends on whether he gets full practices this week or not. If he's questionable, I don't want to start him. But if he's good to go, if he gets some full practices in, I'm cool starting him. And I might even move him up a little bit. Great matchup against Seattle. Hayden Hurst against Kansas City. He's going to either get it done or not. Like, it's like one of those situations where you never know. But he's running a high route participation as well. Kansas City, good matchup, and also high-scoring game. So, if you want, you can put Hurst in there.
I think that Bengals Chiefs game kind of falls into start everybody territory. That's just me. I mean, even though Hayden Hurst, he's been, relatively quiet at tight end. Anybody's liable to catch a touchdown in those games that just go, crazy. So I think that a touchdown is all you can ask for from a tight end at this point, and he has a pretty good chance of getting one if he, if these offenses, clash.
I got Greg Dulcich at 13. He's running a high route participation, but he's just not getting the targets right now. He hasn't got it done over the last couple of weeks, even without Jerry Jeudy. So a little bit disappointing there. Tyler Conklin at 14. He's running around 70% route participation, which is solid for a tight end. And against Minnesota, maybe he can do something. But he just hasn't got it done either. And with Mike White, maybe targets redistribute a little bit, but who knows? Evan Ingram at 15 against Detroit. Juwan Johnson against Tampa Bay. Hunter Henry, Dawson Knox at 18. Robert Tonyan, and then Logan Thomas at 19 and 20.
Right. And then, who'd you move out of the 20 spot? Was it Jelani Woods?
I moved out Jelani Woods because
Kylan Granson.
Kylan Granson is going to play this week.
Kylan Granson is going to play this week. So I was going to say, if he doesn't, would Jelani Woods have any appeal to you? I guess he would if he was
he would.
at 20. But
he would. Yeah, he would. Because he had 9 targets last week, caught 8 of them or whatever it was. So I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Because the tight end landscape is so bleak that
Yeah.
anybody who can pop off a little bit would be intriguing.
Was it always this bad with tight ends in fantasy? Like I feel like it wasn't a couple of years ago when obviously Travis
Usually
Kelce
it's
was
not
around.
this bad. Usually it's like you can get like their top 10, 12 tight ends can give you like 10 points.
Yeah,
On a
like,
per game basis.
Back in the
But
day,
it's been bad
when
lately.
we had Travis Kelce, we had Gronk, we had Delaney Walker running around and doing having good games.
Yeah. Well, also remember Ertz, is out.
Yep.
Goddard is out.
That's true.
So we have a few top tight ends who are out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I hear you. All right, that's gonna do it for this show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with our Q&A show. So since there's no trade shows anymore, what we did, we moved the shows up a little bit, and then on Fridays we're gonna be doing Q&A. Okay, so make sure you tune in noon Eastern time here on YouTube on the Upper Hand Fantasy YouTube channel. We're gonna be going over questions. Just put your questions in the chat. You can use the super chat too if you want to, have your questions preferred. But yeah, we'll be answering a bunch of questions for like an hour. We'll be doing some Underdog stuff as well, letting you guys know what Underdog plays that we love this weekend. And yeah, we'll see you guys there. It's all about you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. We'll see you tomorrow. See ya.